Well, good day to all of you. It's a Tuesday here at the South Parish Congregational Church, and I'm coming to you to share with you a few words for our midweek message as a part of my time spent with you. And I'd like to read you first from Psalm 13, which kind of sets the stage for some of the things I'd like to talk about with you this afternoon. From Psalm 13, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord, my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. The psalm really reminds us of the difficulties and sadness and the terrible tragedies that are a part of life, where we often feel alone and forgotten. But these words remind us that we are never forgotten. And the key, of course, is recognizing the very real and holy grace that God shares with us. And it is a holy thing that God shares with us, grace. And I'd like us to think about grace today a little bit as it relates to the scripture readings, as it relates to what we're going to be sharing in as a part of the lectionary readings for this Sunday. The readings, by the way, are from Genesis 22, verses 1 through 14, which is that very famous or even infamous story of Abraham being called by God seemingly to sacrifice his son. A story that's been told in various ways down through the ages. But it's a very powerful story. And the end of it, of course, reminds us of God's grace. That is, receiving something that we can't really make happen, or receiving something that we can't ever completely understand as a gift, but yet given to us anyway by God. And of course, at the end of the story, we realize that God is not going to ask Abraham to sacrifice his son. He is going to just provide a way out in the midst of this terrible situation. And as difficult as that story is for many of us to read, the end of it does remind us of God's grace. That is, receiving something that we can't necessarily completely understand or make happen. It's something that's given to us freely, despite what we may deserve or not deserve. That's the beauty of grace. The second reading, of course, is from Romans chapter 6, where where Paul talks about being under grace. That as believers in Jesus Christ, we are under his grace, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. And then the gospel reading is from Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. So I urge you to read those scripture readings in preparation for this week's service. So what is grace? Well, I think the best definition I've ever been given is grace is something that you can never get, but only be given. Grace is something you can never get. That is, you cannot go and get it, but it is something that only can be given to you. And when we speak about God's grace, this is what Paul is talking about when he says we are under God's grace, that we are receiving the blessing and salvation of Jesus Christ, not as something that we earn or something we could possibly ever get on our own. It is something that is given to us. And for many of us, that's a hard thing to kind of understand or grapple with, or do grapple with it rather, because in our society we're taught we earn what we get, that somehow we have to do certain things in life to receive a blessing of any kind. But here we have these words of Paul telling us that we are under grace, that God gives us something free. He gives us something that we can't get, that we can't earn, and that is the salvation of Jesus Christ. Now that's the ultimate grace, but I'd just like to ask you all, is there something in your life that you consider grace? Something that you would describe as grace in your life? Think about that with me for a few moments. I thought about it this past week. I think a good sleep is grace. I think being happy is grace, and being sad is grace as well, being shared with us. I think um, many of the gifts that are a part of nature are grace. The fragrance of a flower, that's grace. And being loved and loving, that's grace. What are some things that you can think about in your life that you would consider grace really as a part of your everyday life? And I think I would add to this as well that when we think about grace, grace is not something to be taken lightly. It's something, as a matter of fact, we can't take it all. It's something that is given to us. It's not something we can get. It's only something we can be given. But there's a key to that. There's a key to grace. Just like there is a kind of a catch to everything in life, there's a kind of a catch to grace as well. That in order to completely understand grace, and certainly those things that are grace filled in our life, we have to reach out and we have to take grace. That is, we have to reach out and accept it. Just like any gift that's freely given, we have to accept it. So the challenge for us all, I guess, is to not only recognize grace, but also to reach out and accept it. Again, it's not something we can get. We have to be given it. But like any incredible gift, and I just had my Father's Day, a wonderful Father's Day with my daughters. They gave me some wonderful gifts. They're gifts that I couldn't have come up with on my own. Just like any gift that we're given, we have to accept it. We have to reach out and bring it into our hearts and say, yes, I accept this gift. I accept this grace. From the words of Amazing Grace, the beautiful hymn from John Newton. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. And the final verse. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. That is accepting God's grace. I hope that you take time today to think about the things that are grace in your life, that are grace filled, that are graceful in your life, and then bring them into your heart. Receive them and accept them. Go, my friends, in peace, and we'll see you soon.